Honorable Speaker, on behalf of Senator Moses Otieno Kajwang, who is the Senator of the Great County, I welcome you and I want to demonstrate that we have confidence in you as an assembly and we are willing to work with you as partners in this journey of protecting the interest of the counties. Thank you and welcome once and again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the leadership of the Senate on both sides, I want to take this opportunity to welcome the delegation from the Parliament of Uganda, who are here on a benchmarking visit with our Secretariat. I want to give them the assurance that they are in the right place at the right time, that you've come to visit the Senate at a time that we have a clear demonstration of professionalism in the management of affairs of the Senate and of Parliament. The beauty of it is that the clerk who leads the Secretariat of the Senate is also the Secretary of the Parliamentary Service Commission. And so you're in the right place. I wish you well as you visit with us. And when you go back to Uganda, you take the greetings from the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. As a Speaker, I welcome them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thanks for allowing me to acknowledge the presence this afternoon of our visitors from Marsabit. Good people, you're most welcome to the Senate. And as you go back to Marsabit, please teach your children that Marsabit has a big place in this Senate, a big place in Parliament, because of the work and contribution of the late Dr. Bonaya Godana, who you all know. He's one of the makers of the nation of Kenya for the contribution he's made. You're most welcome. I wish all your children well and hope that there will be many Dr. Bonaya Godanas who will be born to join us here in Nairobi to work for the nation. Welcome.
Next order, clerk.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Devolution.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the report from Kajiado County. The Moving North Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations report on petition of the refurbishment and expansions of Kajiado Municipality Market by the County Government of Kajiado. Honorable Speaker, on 27th April 2023, the Senate has received petition from Kajiado Municipality Clothes Market Traders on the refurbishment and expansion of Kajiado Municipality Market by the County Government of Kajiado. The petition was presented in the Senate by the Senator for Kajiado County, Senator Sigi, on behalf of the petitioners and provided for the Standing Order Section 232(1)(b) of the Senate Standing Orders. Consequently, the petition was tabled on the floor of the House on Thursday, 4th May 2023, and stood committed to the committee pursuant to Standing Order 238-1 on the Senate Standing Orders. Honorable Speaker, the salient issues raised in petitions were that during the financial year 2020-2021, the county government of Kajiado received an allocation of 63,061,154.20 on 22nd July 2021 from the World Bank via the State Department of Housing and Urban Development. The funds were meant to refurbish and expand the Kajiado market, municipality market, to accommodate the clothes market vendors who have been displaced by the previous Kenya Urban Support Program, KUSUP. Additionally, the tender process undertaken by the county government of Kajiado and contract awarded to Berlin market contractors at the sum of 56,214,411.97 was put into question. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, sir, the petition alleged that the project was scaled down to less than 50%, where critical infrastructures, among them solar lights, control gates, water tanks, solid waste sorting, chambers, mounted solid waste, pins, the construction of the market, the stormwater drainage channels, fittings, fixtures for the cultural high streets were all together left out with no corresponding review on the contract sum. Honorable Speaker, the petitioner's prayers was that the Senate looks into the matter with a view of ensuring that amicable solution to get amicable solution into the issues raised in the petition, as well as make any other relevant recommendations in its consideration for the petition. The committee thereafter considered the petition extensively and submissions received thereof. Honorable Speaker, it is noted that the Governor of Kajiado, His Excellency Lengu, being a key respondent of the issue raised in the petition, was invited and actually appeared before the committee, and together with other officials from the county government, they made submissions on the issues raised in the petition. The petitioners were also present at the meeting. Further, the State Department of Housing and Urban Development presented their written report on the petition to the committee. Honorable Speaker, the committee also held a site visit to Kajiado County to inspect the market. The visit was held on 24th July 2023, where the committee inspected the Kajiado Municipality Market and held deliberations with the Deputy Governor, County Executive officials, and the Director of National Coordinator for the Kenya Urban Support Program project at the State Department of Housing and Urban Development to determine the status of this construction based on its deliberations. The committee has made various observations and recommendations which are set out in Chapter 4 and 5 of the report. In summary, Honorable Speaker, the recommendations of the committee on the refurbishment and the expansion of the market are as follows. On the expansion of the market under Phase 2 of the KUSUP project, there was indication that Phase 2 of the project was scheduled to start 1st of August 2023. The committee therefore recommends that the county government should engage in the tenders when planning and implementing the project as is required in the settlement and action plan. In the meantime, the tenders should consider occupying the available space until more funding is availed for the project and the spaces are adequately increased for all the traders. Having established that the space provided in the completed market for each trader, which is 5 and 6 square feet, 5 by 6 feet, is inadequate, the county government should, as a matter of priority, increase the space to be occupied by each trader to a size agreeable between all concerned parties during the implementation of Phase 2 of the project. And 3, upon completion of the expansion under Phase 2, the county government should relocate some of the traders in Phase 1 to create more room for the traders. The county government should also, during the expansion of the market, should consider create ease of access market for persons with disability. The county government, Kajiado, and the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation should look into lasting solutions into the water supply problem in Kajiado. On the status report and accountability, the county government of Kajiado, the State Department for Housing and Urban Development, and the World Bank shall submit the status report for the Senate to the Senate during the undertaking, and upon completion of the phase 2 of the project, the report should highlight how issues raised by the petitioners have been dealt with. And on oversight project, the committee shall evaluate the existing oversight framework for municipality and urban area projects which are funded through the third-party collaborations of national government guaranteed loans or grants. There is a need to enhance financial accountabilities of municipalities to county assemblies as required by the Public Finance Act 2012. Honorable Speaker, may I take this opportunity to commend the committee for the devotion and commitment to the duty they made for the constituency. Also, I want to thank your office and the clerks for the good work they have done. It is therefore my pleasant duty, pursuant to Standing Order 2284A, to present the report of the Standing Committee on Devolution and Integration Relations, Intergovernmental Relations, on its considerations of the petition to establish an expansion of Kajiado municipality by the county government of Kajiado. Thanks to the Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statements pursuant to Standing Order 53-1. The Honorable Senator Christo. We differ. But where are they? They're not even here. The Honorable Senator Esther Okanyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request for statement on dragging of revelers in entertainment sports. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the dragging of unsuspecting revelers by their would-be lovers in places of entertainment, especially in nightclubs. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain the major pharmacological drugs used to drug victims, stating the number of cases that have been reported to the police due to the use of mchele and the gender distribution of such victims. 2, map out the hotspots in terms of reported incidents and the approximate monetary value of the entire mchele criminal enterprise in Kenya, detailing how many people have been arrested on this criminal account, their gender ratios, and any measures the security apparatus has to put in place to deny these criminal elements access to the drugs. 3, states the number of rape cases that have been reported and specifically related to the drugging of the rape victims, outlining the gender distribution of the victims and the percentage of the total drugging occurrences that are sexually exploitative. 4, outline any policy, legislative, or capacity gaps in the ministry might be aware of, which might be hindering it from tackling these crimes, and state any plans of the ministry to educate and create awareness to the public on the tell warning signs of a potential drugging encounter, to publish known hotspots, and to create general security alertness to detect threats among the population. Senator Okenyuri, MP. Thank you.
Senator Chiranke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, request for statement on plight of early childhood development and education ECD teachers in Nandi County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education concerning the plight of early childhood development and education ECD teachers in Nandi County. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir, the committee should state why the county government of Nandi has not implemented a scheme of service for ECD teachers in the county. Mr. Speaker, sir, number 2, explain why the county government of Nandi is using different and unapproved payment structure in paying ECD teachers employed on permanent and pensionable terms as a special salary, thus making their pay slips invaluable. Speaker, sir, number 3, give reasons why the county government of Nandi has failed to harmonize salaries for all ECD teachers, hence demotivating and causing anxiety among teachers due to imbalance of terms of service. So, Speaker, sir, number 4, provide a list of all ECD teachers in Nandi County, indicating their terms of employment, salaries, and teacher distribution per sub-county across the 6 sub-counties in Nandi County. And finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, probe the claims that the county executive member in charge of education and the governor in Nandi County have been intimidating and harassing teachers or ECD teachers instead of addressing their grievances. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you allow me to go to my second statement.
Can you proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, request for statement on sustainability of Kenya Airways. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the sustainability of Kenya Airways. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the statement, the committee should, 1, state measures put in place to address the shortage of aircrafts experienced by Kenya Airways or KQ, disclosing 1, details of current, number 2, planned leases of aircrafts, number 3, to include also in their terms of operation, and number 4, commercial viability of leasing such aircrafts by Kenya Airways or KQ as is commonly known. So, Speaker, finally, disclose the details of the signed strategic partnership framework between KQ and South Africa Airways, which is under receivership, explaining the potential impact of the partnership and whether it would result in a merger or merger of the operations of the 2 airlines between Kenya Airways and South Africa Airlines, which is under receivership. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Christo, are you ready to make your request under Standing Order 53?
Yes, Speaker, thank you. I did have 2 statements under 52-1, though, that I was assured as recently as this morning that they are on the order paper, but I see that they are not. And I wonder what guidance you might give me on that.
Just proceed to make a request under 53. And because thereafter I will give room for senators to make contribution on all these statements for 15 minutes. So if within the 15 minutes, your statements under Standing Order 52 will be availed, then thereafter I could grant you a chance to proceed.
I thank you, Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the recognition of special needs education programs by the Teachers Service Commission across higher education institutions in Kenya. In the statement, the committee should list the approved higher education institutions in Kenya by the TSC duly accredited to offer nationally recognized certification for special needs education programs, and where not indicated on this list, explain why higher education institutions such as the Kenyatta University and Maseno University are alleged to not hold special needs education accreditation, but continue to offer such courses. Explain the rationale behind the Teacher Service Commission decision to withhold accreditation for special needs education programs offered by certain institutions in Kenya, such as those by Kenyatta University and Maseno University, which has led to the unemployment of thousands of graduates. Investigate why higher education institutions continue to entice students to enroll into these specialized programs without holding proper accreditation to offer such courses, leaving students without accurate prospects into postgraduate employment pathways. And finally, appraise the Senate on recourse measures that will be taken to ensure funds or compensations are made to thousands of graduates who are affected that hold certificates in these specialized programs from higher education institutions that have no accreditation to offer such courses. I thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I will allow 15 minutes for any intervention on these statements, and therefore, if you're given an opportunity to speak, mind your colleagues, please. Senator Kinyua.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipatia fursa hii. Na nataka kuunga mkono taarifa ya Senator Esi wa Kanyuri kwa sababu Bwana Spika, ndio haya mambo ambayo yanatokea katika sehemu za kujiburudisha Bwana Spika zimekuwa ni kama donda sugu, kwa sababu ukitembelea sehemu nyingi Bwana Spika unapata iko watu wanajifanya kwamba wameenda pale kuburudika Bwana Spika, lakini ni watu wanavizia wengine, ni wakora Bwana Spika. Wamebeba madawa ambayo kwa lugha ya Kiingereza Bwana Spika ambayo inajulikana zaidi ni Rohypnol Bwana Spika, ni Domicam Bwana Spika, ambayo wanakuwekea wakati Bwana Spika wewe umeenda pale kujiburudisha, hauna nia yoyote, lakini Bwana Spika unapata mtu amewekewa yale madawa, kwa lugha ya mtaani wanasema mchele Bwana Spika. Wanakuwekea mchele, alafu baada ya dakika chache Bwana Spika wewe umelala pale haujifahamu, basi wanaanza kukuibia Bwana Spika. Wengine wanakubeba, wanakupeleka kwa gari Bwana Spika, wanakuibia chochote ulichonacho Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo kamati ambayo ni ya usalama wakishughulikia hili jambo Bwana Spika waliangalie kwa undani, na hasa waangalie zile pharmacy ama duka za kuuza madawa Bwana Spika, kwa sababu madawa yale mengine ni madawa ambayo yamekubalika kuuzwa, lakini yanapaswa kuuzwa mtu akiwa na prescription Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo unapata Bwana Spika waangalie hasa maduka yetu ya kuuza madawa, kwa sababu hapo ndiko shida inaanza Bwana Spika. Na unapata watu wengi ambao wameandikwa katika haya maduka ama wameajiriwa katika haya maduka ya kuuza madawa Bwana Spika, hawaangalii, hawashughulikii mambo yoyote ambayo ni dawa ipi ipaswe kuuzwa bila prescription. Kwa hivyo wakitumia nao wakora tafuta njia mbadala Bwana Spika ya kuaibia watu, badala ya kutumia sasa bunduki na risasi Bwana Spika wanatumia madawa, kwa sababu Bwana Spika mimi nafikiria pengine ni vile teknolojia inaendelea kupanda, watu wanaendelea kutumia njia mbadala ya kuaibia wananchi. Nashukuru Bwana Spika, na ni vizuri kamati hiyo iangazie kwa kindani, na sio tu kwenda pale katika mabaa, lakini tuangalie Bwana Spika hata duka zetu za kuuza madawa. Nashukuru Bwana Spika.
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa fursa hii ya kuchangia. Labda ningemshauri pia ndugu yetu Senator Mazayo achangie taarifa ya Senator Kinyuri kuhusiana na masuala ya mchele katika Mangwe. Lakini la msingi Mheshimiwa Spika, la msingi mimi ningependa kuchangia maombi ya taarifa
What is the point of order? What is the point of order?
Bwana Spika, asante kwa kunipa nafasi hii. Bwana Spika, nataka kuuliza swali moja tu peke yake. Je, ni haki yeye kutaja kiongozi wake wa walio wengi wachache, kumtaja kama mmoja wa wale ambao waweze kuongea kuhusikana na wale ambao wanahusikana na mambo ya kupelekea ama kusambaza mchele wenye sumu kuwafanya wengine waweze kufaint? Ni haki hiyo?
I think, Senator Mazayo, I don't think you understood Senator Faki. The reason why he picked on you is because of the kind of drink that was referring to is only available in your county. Mangoes are only available in Kilifi. So he was saying, if this thing is rampant in bars, could it be also available in those mangoes in Kilifi? So, Senator Faki, you have mangoes in your county, so you can as well proceed and tell us whether this substance, commonly known as mchele, is also available in Mombasa County.
Kweli, mango mimi nazipitia mbali kwa sababu imani yangu hainiruhusu kutumia vinywaji hivyo. Kwa hivyo ningependa ku-withdraw swala hilo kama Mheshimiwa Mazayo hataka kuzungumzia mambo ya mchele kuhusiana na mangwe. Ningependa kuondoa matamshi yangu. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, la msingi na muhimu kabisa, ningependa kuchangia taarifa iliyoletwa bungeni na Senator Cherargei kuhusiana na Kenya Airways. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kweli kwamba Kenya Airways miaka nenda miaka rudi sasa inafanya hasara, na hasara hii inabebwa na serikali, inabebwa na kodi zetu. Leo ukiangalia tikiti ya kwenda kutoka Nairobi kwenda Mombasa leo si chini ya shilingi 15,000. Hatujui ni mafuta yako juu, hatujui ni gharama za uendeshaji shirika hilo, hatujui ni madeni ambao wanadaiwa, na vile vile serikali pia haijakuwa na msimamo wote kuhusiana na shirika hili. Utapata kila mwaka ikifika wakati wa kulipa madeni bilioni 60 zinakwenda, bilioni 50 zinakwenda, hatujui ni mambo gani ambayo yanafanyika. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia kwa upande mwingine, serikali hii imechukua fursa kutaka kubinafsisha baadhi ya huduma katika bandari ya Mombasa. Wametoa zabuni ya kubinafsisha berth number 1 mpaka number 7, CT1, container terminal 1 na huduma nyingine hizo katika bandari hili. Na wakati KPA inapeleka faida nyingi kwa serikali mpaka ikatumika kama zabuni ya mkopo ambao umechukuliwa wa SGR. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tunaona kwamba serikali hii haina msimamo mmoja kuhusiana na mashirika haya. Wakenda Western kule kwa kenda Senator Khalwale wanasema hakuna ubinafsishaji wa viwanda vya sukari. Wakija Pwani wanasema tutachukua Kenya Petroleum Refineries tuiunganishe na KPC. Itakuwaje mto uunganishwe na bahari? Kwa sababu Kenya Petroleum Refineries ina assets nyingi, ina mali nyingi kuliko Kenya Pipeline. Lakini wanasema kwamba kwa kuwa wataka waboreshe huduma za Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Petroleum Refineries, wataondoa Kenya Petroleum Refineries waiunganishe na Kenya Pipeline. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii serikali haina msimamo thabiti kuhusiana na viwanda. Kwa hivyo kama hawana msimamo thabiti ya kuhusiana na viwanda, waachane na viwanda vile vilivyo. Sisi tunajua bandari haiwezi kupata hasara. Daima dawama haiwezi kupata hasara. Kwa hivyo hili swala kwamba wanabinafsisha baadhi ya huduma katika bandari hiyo hatukubaliane nao Mheshimiwa Spika. Na ndio nasema kwamba lazima serikali iwajibike. Lazima serikali iwajibike. Kama wanaweza kulipa bilioni 60 kwa Kenya Airways kwa mwaka, kufungua kuanzisha tena kazi katika Kenya Petroleum Refineries haihitaji bilioni hizo. Tunajua kuna mafuta Turkana. Juzi tunaambiwa hata wiki ijayo tukienda tukikaa katika vikao Turkana tutapata fursa kwenda kuangalia hivyo visima vya mafuta. Na mafuta yale kuyasafirisha mpaka Mombasa ni rahisi kuliko kuyasafirisha kutoka Kenya mpaka India kwenda kusafishwa. Kiwanda tuko nacho pale, nafasi ya kuweka yale mafuta storage ya kutosha iko, soko liko la kutosha. Kwa hivyo ni bora serikali irejeshe tena kazi katika kiwanda cha Kenya Petroleum Refineries kuliko kuiunganisha sasa na Kenya Pipeline ili waweze kutuibia mali zetu ambazo tumekuwa nazo kutoka jadi mpaka jadi. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Senator Bone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to request for further responses to the issue of KQ, Kenya Airways. Mr. Speaker, this is very sad. The thought of losing KQ should perish. An international airline like the one we have in Kenya is actually the face of the country, especially when you're out of the country. We should learn from the best international practices. We've seen an airline like Ethiopian Airlines, which has been at the same level with KQ for a long time, is doing pretty well. And Mr. Speaker, we are to blame. I am not a big sympathizer of the former President Uhuru, but when President Uhuru advised Parliament, last Parliament in the 12th, that we should allow KQ to operate Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, he was learning from the best international practices. Bole International Airport in Ethiopia, Addis, is operated by Ethiopian Airlines, and it is profitable. I want to appeal to colleagues. We allow this matter to come back to the Senate, to come back to the National Assembly. We allow KQ to operate Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and probably Mombasa and Eldoret, Mr. Speaker, and Kisumu. Could the committee come with a position of government on whether they are willing to do another attempt? The second comment is, if we don't fix this, this thing appears to have become a cash cow. There are some owners of shares within KQ who know that at every financial year, they'll be benefiting from the cash which is normally injected in. Maybe this report, Mr. Speaker, should tell us, who are these people who are leasing aircrafts? We are told that some of the big political families in this country, they own aircrafts, and I've not said which family. They own aircraft which they lease to us. We cannot surrender the wealth of the common wealth of the nation to a few families, Mr. Speaker. This has to be clear. We want Kenya to go on. I flew Kenya Airways when it was still a small thing like this. I fly it today. I would like my grandchildren to fly it even when it is better. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mazzaya.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii. Bwana Spika, nataka kusema kwamba vilabu vile vya kimataifa ama vilabu vile vya kawaida, hiyo tabia ya kuwekwa mchele iko, na watu wameweza kupoteza maisha yao, na wengine wamekuwa wagonjwa, hatimaye wameweza kufariki. Na mambo haya kwamba kutakuwa na mambo ya kuwekeana mchele, Bwana Spika, tunajua pia watu wakiwa wameenda katika vilabu vya burudani huwa wanakuwa hawana uangalifu maalum wakati kama ile hali ya unywaji imekuwa juu. Bwana Spika, ni ukweli kabisa, na mimi nataka kumuunga yule dadangu wa Kinyori kwa dadangu seneta wa Kinyori Okinyuri, pole dadangu Okinyuri, nataka kumuunga mkono kwa dhati kwamba hii ni muhimu, kwamba kuwe na uangalifu zaidi, na pia vile vile tuweze kusisitiza na kuleta sheria ambazo zinaweza kuangalia wale watu ambao wanauza madawa ndani ya hizi pharmacy zetu. Siku hizi kuna mchezo wa kwamba bila kuwa na prescription, ukienda pale, umeandikiwa na Dr. Boni Khalwale, amekuandikia prescription, ukifika pale unachukua, ama asipokuandikia ukienda peke yako, dawa kama hizo unaweza kuzipata. Bwana Spika, nafikiria kungekuwa na mwamko mpya wa kwamba hivi sasa mambo wale madaktari ama wale wanaouza katika pharmacy wakiwa wanauza madawa ambao wanajua haya ni madawa ya kulevya, ni lazima waangaliwe na kwamba wanauza kwa kina nani na yanaenda wapi na yanatumika namna gani. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Murango.
Asante sana mstahiki Spika. Kwanza nawapa pole wale ambao waliwekewa hiyo mandawa anaita mchele. Na kama seneta wa Kirinyaga mahali tunakuza ile mchele mingi sana, kwanza ninasimama hapa kuhakikisha kwamba hatuongei mchele kama mchele, kwa sababu enda ikatuharibia biashara. Inafaa itwe kwa jina ambao inaofaa, kwamba ni mandawa mbovu ambao inaekewa watu katika vilambu vingi hapa nchini kwa watu ambao wako na madhumuni mbaya. Kwa hivyo la kwanza niseme pole kwa wao. La pili, ningetaka kuunga mkono mswada ambao umeletwa hapa na Senator wa Nandi Cherargei. Kwa sababu kitu ambacho inashangaza sana ni kwamba shirika la ndege la Kenya Airways ni mojawapo ya shirika ambao tiketi zao zinatoka pesa mingi sana. Ni ghali mno hata kushinda ndege zingine. Na hizi ndege sio kama matatu haziendi mkato. Hizi ndege kama matatu hakuna mtu anakula fare. Hizi ndege wakati wanalipisha hakuna mtu anakataa kulipa. Sisi tunalipa wote. Hata kufika mahali tumelazimishwa kuwa wazalendo kwamba tukitaka kusafiri mpaka tutumie ndege hizo. Ya kwanza ningesema ya kwamba hatufai pia kupembeleza punda kwa mteremko. Tumekaa na tumekuwa tukiteseka ya kutosha. Katika hii Kenya, katika biashara, kila mtu ako na ruhusa ya kufanya kazi inavyofaa ili ajipendekeze kwa wale wanaotumia zile services ama tiketi ambazo wanatoa. Kwa hivyo ningetaka kusema ya kwamba iangaliwe kwa makini. Lakini kama venye Waswahili wanasema, ukiona manyoya ujue imeliwa. Tunajua kuna kasoro mahali katika Kenya Airways, inafaa iangaliwe na itatuliwe. Asante sana Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, I am a member of the Transport Committee of this House, and we have interacted with this question of Kenya Airways quite at length. This is not the first time that a senator is raising this matter on this floor. Out of that interaction, I am convinced that the only solution to the Kenya Airways question is getting government out of Kenya Airways. It is the only parastatal that I am ready and willing to support full privatization, because all of the interference, all of the things and the nuances that the senators are referring here to is because of the influence of people in power on the board of management of Kenya Airways. I do not agree with those who proposed, for instance, that, and Senator Khalwale has spoken to it here, that we need to allow Kenya Airways to run the airports. What you're essentially doing is taking a loss-making entity, which is Kenya Airways, to put it in charge of a profit-making entity, which is the Kenya Airports Authority. That is not a solution that I would proffer. But it is good that this matter is coming up for, I think, the 10th time. The National Assembly has had inquiries on this particular matter. The Senate committees have had inquiries on Kenya Airways and its viability. But I still believe that the only solution is to get government influence out of the management of the affairs of Kenya Airways. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, as you know, yesterday we had a very interesting debate here, and I think it has come full circle that today Senator Okenyuri has brought a question before this House whose victims, a vast majority, are the male. Vast majority. I have heard you saying the committee should give you the demographics of the spread of the victims. The largest percentage of reported victims of this mchele are men, and most of them are in this city. Mr. Speaker, you know, there are people who have tried to criminalize Shere in this country and make it look like it is something that God frowns upon. But I want to remind them that the first miracle that Jesus himself performed was to turn water into wine. And if these ladies who sambaza this michele were there at that miracle in Canaan, Mr. Speaker, they would have wreaked havoc because everybody in that party had a drink. Mr. Speaker, we have an organization or a government entity in this country called the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. It is their responsibility to make sure that the supply and availability of these stupefying drugs is not as rampant as it is right now. I saw an investigation by one of the local media houses. It was so easy to procure these things. You just go across the counter and you tell them, Leo mukona gani, which one do you have now? They will even tell you that there's a more potent one that has come. And this should essentially be controlled substances, Mr. Speaker. It's not about, blacklisting what they call, what Senator Okenyuri was talking about, known places. Because the purveyors of mchele are mobile. Today they will be in a club on Ngong Road. Tomorrow you will find them. If you run away and go to Thika Road, you will find them there as well. And there have been reported cases even in this city where some clubs and security people in those clubs collude with these criminals, essentially criminals, to poison people. And we have seen very serious cases, Mr. Speaker, people actually die. And there is nothing that, as a senator of Nairobi, personally, I would hate more than people who want to ruin sherehe in this city. And therefore, I want to strongly agree with my sister Okenyuri that this is a matter that we now need to deal with firmly, and especially because a vast majority of the victims are men like myself. So, Mr. Speaker, this one is something close to my heart. I want it to be resolved as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ali Roba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the statement by Senator Cherargei on Kenya Airways. It seems this problem of Kenya Airways is unlikely to go away, and it is wrapped in challenges of other stakeholders controlling the issues of Kenya Airways. The solution as suggested by Senator Sifuna can only be full privatization of Kenya Airways in order to make sure that that entity is able to compete unhindered by unseen forces around the management of Kenya Airways. That Kenya Airways has proven beyond any reasonable doubt that it will be incapable of changing itself in its current structure, current setting. And I would like to, request His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya. I feel pained, as a pilot. I travel vast in my career before. And whenever I travel, and for example, in the just less than 10 years ago, Ethiopian Airlines was way behind Kenya Airways. Recently, I traveled to Addis, and I looked at the fleet of Ethiopian Airlines at the airport in Bole International Airport. And what I've seen is unimaginable. And when we arrived in the terminal, what you look at the passengers in transit, the handling, and the number of people working in that airport, the number of staff working in that airport in terms of shifts and how busy that airport is, it really calls for radical redesign of Kenya Airways in terms of structure, management, and Kenya Airways need to be fully privatized, and the issues bedeviling Kenya Airways need to be really looked into. And it's in the best interest of the government. Government is struggling to create employment. This airport can really employ hundreds of thousands of Kenyans to be able to work if Kenya Airways is restructured properly to be able to do its work as required as a private, fully private entity competing on a level platform with other players on other airlines within the region and beyond. And as I've shared before when this issue came up, Mr. Speaker, sir, it's not that the tickets of Kenya Airways are the cheapest in the region. Then you will start wondering if the aircraft are getting, full passenger load to capacity. The tickets are not cheap. Why should then Kenya Airways be making losses? It means there is an issue beyond the issue of Kenya Airways. And as I've shared before, if the government is too willing to bail them out, then why should Kenya Airways report profit in the first place? And that is the challenge we have. I rise to support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me comment on the two statements by Honorable Cherargei. One is on the ECD teachers. Mr. Speaker, this issue of ECD is common in all our counties, including my county, Vihiga County, where the ECD teachers are going through a lot of challenges. And I think the committee that will handle this matter, they can ensure that all other counties are also looked into so that we have a permanent solution to the problem of ECD teachers in our country. On the second issue of Kenya Airways, Mr. Speaker, I think the problem of this country is that we have so many ideas, we put them on paper, but we don't implement. I remember very well that this Senate took time and came up with a very serious report. That committee led by the current governor of Kisumu, Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, that looked into this matter of Kenya Airways. That report has not been implemented, Mr. Speaker. In the last parliament, the National Assembly also dealt with this matter and came up with a very good report, which I have read. It listed the problems, the challenges of Kenya Airways. And one of the challenges was that Kenya Airways cannot compete favorably with other airlines because practically they don't have an airport of their own. All major airlines, even in Africa, Rwanda Airline, Ethiopian Airline, they all have their home airports. And they do not compete in paying charges with other competing airlines. So in Kenya here, they recommended that the solution to this is by coming up with a holding company that will combine KAA and Kenya Airways so that to reduce the cost of operation of Kenya Airways. But that report, Mr. Speaker, is largely unimplemented. Nothing has happened. So I think Parliament also, we have a responsibility that the reports that we produce, we ensure they are implemented, because it doesn't make sense that we come up with a report, we address issues conclusively, and then several years later we come back and restart the same thing. So I would recommend that the committee that will be looking into this matter, they go to the archives and pick the two reports by this Senate and the National Assembly, so that we don't appear like we are reinventing the wheel when we have solutions to these problems. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Honorable Senators, we have expended the 15 minutes, and therefore we will proceed to the statements pursuant to Standing Order 52-1. However, before I allow Senator Crystal Asigi and Senator Muma to make their statements, I have the following communication to make. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Murungaro Secondary School in Nyandarua County. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate, on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Also, I would wish to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon, visiting teachers and students from Upendo CDC, Nairobi City County. Honorable Senators, in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming guests to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate, and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I will allow Senator Sifuna to, under 1 minute, to say a word of welcome on behalf of the two delegations.
Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, as the head of delegation for Nairobi, I would like to allow Senator Karen Nyamu from Nairobi to make that welcome. I thank you.
Very well, Senator Nyamu.
Thank you very much, my head of delegation, Senator Sifuna, and thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you, our guests, in this plenary session. We want you to take as much as possible. I happen to have links in the county of Nyandarua through the father of my children, and so I am part of you. I am sure The ones from Nyandarua know what I'm talking about. So welcome, enjoy the session, and learn as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Honorable Crystal Asige, your statements pursuant to Standing Order 52.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I appreciate through you and the clerk's table for your swift action. Thank you. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52.1 to make a statement regarding the recent judgment of the Employment and Labor Relations Court, which required the Registrar of Trade Unions to register the Kenyan Musicians Union in Civil Appeal number E130 of 2022. Mr. Speaker, the right to unionize is a fundamental human right. Article 23(4) of the Universal Human Rights Declaration states that everyone has the right to form and to join trade unions for the protection of his interests. This right is recognized under our own Constitution, which grants every worker the right to form, join, or participate in the activities and programs of trade union under Article 41. The importance of trade unions is well established in our country. Historically, they are the vehicles through which workers have communicated their needs, championed for rights such as leave and pension benefits, agitate for better pay, and improve their working conditions in general. These are huge undertakings that are difficult to attain at an individual level, Speaker, but together, workers from different industries have been able to channel their voices through collective bargaining agreements, CBAs, and achieve more humane and respectable conditions. Mr. Speaker, musicians are workers whose tools are their voices, instruments, and sheer talent. It is of great concern that in our country, where music brings us together and marks every major occasion of life, musicians lack union, which they can better organize themselves to earn a better, respectable condition of life. This need is evident by the success enjoyed in jurisdictions such as the United States, the United Kingdom, and France, where various musicians' trade unions have successfully set up industry standard minimum rates, established codes of conduct for matters such as harassment and discrimination, and facilitated benefits such as health, insurance, and legal representations for their members. These unions are also at the forefront of developments affecting musicians. For example, in the UK, the Musicians Union is currently coordinating efforts to help musicians understand the impact of artificial intelligence on copyright law. It goes without saying, Speaker, therefore, that a union for musicians would be an invaluable tool for our enterprising musicians in the current digital age that Kenya is in. In 2021, a World Bank report valued Kenya's music industry at over 320 million Kenya shillings. Despite this massive potential, Speaker, incredibly talented people in this country have unfortunately fallen far behind their peers in other markets, both in Africa and beyond. Partly because we have failed to create an environment for local talent to make a sustainable trade out of their work through active and reliable unions. As we are all aware, musicians in our country have been underrepresented for long. Despite our music significance and attention, we have been excluded from development policies and plans, equitable standards and systems, and often witness several of our greats spend their lives in deplorable conditions. This stark reality has been the subject of previous statements and petitions that I and many others in this House have brought before this esteemed House. It's worth noting that we already have the Kenya Union of Entertainment of Music Union Employees, which has existed since the 60s. However, Speaker, throughout its existence, it has failed to be active or negotiate CBAs on behalf of us musicians. This shortcoming can be attributed to its broad focus, encompassing both the music and entertainment industries, which sound similar, but in fact are very different, and therefore dilutes its own ability to adequately represent musicians and our specific needs. Trade unions use CBAs to dialogue with stakeholders toward reaching satisfactory consensus for both workers and employers. The International Labour Organization credits CBAs with greater cooperation and increased productivity of workers, which leads to higher profits due to improved performance. For musicians, Speaker, the equivalent is higher quality and consistency in their craft. In truth, musicians do not need handouts, rather to be empowered. CBAs help to bring about more conducive conditions, and which is, It's a great opportunity to have this union to the whole economy at large, Mr. Speaker. Musicians can in turn employ and contract dancers, managers, stylists, fashion designers, social media managers, accountants. The list goes on and on. The value creation resulting from this can result to even more money flowing in and out of the creative economy, and we can have a Kenya where the music industry is a major contributor to the national GDP. Speaker, with this context in mind, the proponents of the Kenyan Musicians Union sought to create a platform that would solely focus on our concerns. They applied to the Registrar of Trade Unions to register this union, aiming for official recognition. By law, the registrar invited objections. The Kenyan Union of Entertainment and Music Industry Employees initially rejected but withdrew their objections after there was clarification that it was not to replace them, but to focus exclusively on music issues. Shockingly, Speaker, the registrar inexplicably refused to proceed with the registration, leading to this court dispute. Mr. Speaker, every Kenyan has the constitutional right to freedom of association, as outlined in Article 36 of our Constitution. I am pleased to note that the High Court of Kenya recognized this fundamental right and acknowledged the importance of the proposed union in representing musicians' interests. Regrettably, this matter should not have escalated to a court dispute, but it has, and the court has delivered a judgment. Now, our collective attention must be to take the next steps by all parties involved. I urge honorable members in this House to put considerable efforts I urge honorable members in this House to put considerable effort into looking into the plight of musicians in their counties, including championing for those who are trying to unionize. Further, I also seek the support of colleague senators when I bring legislative proposals on creative industry matters to the floor of this House. And the musicians, I urge you to remain vigilant and take advantage of the present opportunity to find strength in numbers. Musicians deserve to have their voices heard and their interests protected by an entity that genuinely understands and advocates for their worth. I thank you. Speaker, I'm just pulling up my second statement.
Yeah, proceed with the second.
Speaker, I rise pursuant to 52.1 to make a statement of topical concern commemorating the International Week of Deaf People and the International Day of Sign Languages. Mr. Speaker, International Week of Deaf People is observed annually between 18th and 24th of September, with the International Day of Sign Languages celebrated on the 23rd of September, this Saturday. To mark these important occasions, we are called to reflect upon the lives of deaf people and the status of their inclusion and empowerment as members of our society. It's an opportunity for us to ponder upon these individuals, participate in various aspects of life that you and I may take for granted, and how policies, laws, and procedures can improve matters for them. It is also a chance to recognize the efforts made so far towards better inclusion for the deaf community. The National Association of the Deaf estimates that there are over 2.7 million deaf people in Kenya, assuming the 5.5% global prevalence. It's important to note that this number might be even higher based on the 2017 study by the Kenya Institute of Special Education, KISE, that found in Kenya the prevalence of persons affected with hearing loss is 10%, that is above the 5.5% global average. It's a significant portion of the nation that needs to be upheld. The International Week of Deaf People encompasses various themes and objectives aimed at raising awareness on matters affecting the deaf community. This year, these themes include the recognition of the rights of deaf children, inclusion of deaf people in matters that concern them, and the diversity of deaf people globally. Mr. Speaker, the United Nations declared the 23rd of September the International Day of Sign Languages to mark this key role that sign languages play in the fundamental human rights for deaf people. Sign language is not a means of communication alone. It's a gateway to inclusion, empowerment, and equal participation in society for millions of individuals who are deaf or hearing impaired. But it cannot be gainsaid how crucial sign languages are to secure human rights and belonging. Through sign languages, people can express their thoughts, feelings, and ideas. This is how we all, whether deaf or hearing, form connections and build relationships, and understand one another, and even gain understanding of different cultures and communities. Mr. Speaker, the International Day for Sign Languages is marked to recognize deaf people as an integral part of our society, who add diversity and color to our heritage. As such, the Kenyan Sign Language should be promoted for use for all throughout Kenya. A definitive step toward achieving this is the swift enactment of the Kenya Sign Language Bill. In doing this, we can surpass the Deaf Federation call for governments to take steps that at least 50% of our children know their national sign language and create societies where deaf people can sign anywhere in the world. Our government should lead by example by taking a step further to provide mandatory sensitivity training across public sectors to ensure the respect, dignity, and protection of the rights of the deaf across the board. In fact, I'd go as far as questioning why this hasn't happened in this honorable House. Mr. Speaker, I wish to bring to your attention that even on our Parliament live stream sessions, we do not provide sign language interpreters to translate daily business of both houses for deaf Kenyans to follow. Being that our Kenya Sign Language Bill is currently moving successfully in the order paper, we will be remiss to not provide interpretation when debating legislation, without being inclusive of those it so crucially impacts. Mr. Speaker, it's important to acknowledge that sign languages are not universal. They vary from one region to another. Currently, there are over 300 unique sign languages recognized globally, reflecting the rich linguistic culture of hearing communities. Our sign language is the primary means of communication for the deaf, and it plays a pivotal role in their daily lives. Sign languages also play an essential role in the educational landscape. Deaf children who are exposed to sign from an early age have the opportunity to access quality education on par with their hearing peers. Inclusive education, where sign language is recognized and integrated, ensures that the deaf students can thrive academically and socially. Mr. Speaker, moreover, there is a need for increased awareness and understanding of the importance of sign languages within our society. Education and sensitization efforts should extend beyond the deaf community to ensure that everyone recognizes the value of sign languages as a bridge to inclusion for all. As the hearing community, we should take it upon ourselves to make an effort to learn basic sign language to communicate, reducing social isolation, discrimination, and misunderstandings. The knowledge of sign language is a great skill to have, Mr. Speaker, and would mean so much to every deaf person that we interact with. To conclude, Speaker, let's reaffirm our commitment to the rights of inclusion and well-being of deaf individuals in Kenya. It's for this reason that I am pushing, along with Senator Kamar, for the enactment of the Kenya Sign Language Bill 2023, and ask colleague senators for their continued support. And I even invite them, Chair, Speaker, to sign. It's very easy, if you would wish to support my, my statement, to sign this way. Mr. Speaker, I support. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52.1 to make a statement on the indigenous peoples of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, please protect me from a huge conversation here that is disrupting me, SG and team. Mr. Speaker, Kenya has a multi-ethnic population of several bands of tribes who have resided in this country well before the arrival of the colonial government and the establishment of the nation of Kenya as it is known today. Article 260 of the Constitution of Kenya acknowledges that indigenous people are part of marginalized communities and that indigenous people in the wording of this article include an indigenous community that has retained and maintained a traditional lifestyle and livelihood based on a hunter or gatherer economy. Mr. Speaker, the phrase indigenous has also been used in different articles of the Constitution in diverse contexts, with recognition being given to the notions of indigenous languages in Article 7, indigenous technologies under Article 11, indigenous seeds under Article 11, and indigenous knowledge under Article 69, wherein these notions are recognized as worthy of protection. The concept of indigenous peoples, however, does not have a universal meaning and is considered differently in different jurisdictions. International and regional treaties like the United Nations Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the International